Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Malazan podcast of the Fallen. Um, Malazan or a Malazan read through podcast. I may have to readjust my speaking to say it correctly now. Um, but I am one of your co hosts, Nathan, and I am joined here by my friend Matt. If you want to say hi.
Hi, I'm Matt, and I totally forgot it's Malazan, not Malazan. And I've heard it so many different ways. I have to
Yeah,
adjust as well.
it's Malazan. So this is going to be a read through podcast of Malazan Book of the Fallen. We are not official in any way. We are not associated with the author or doing anything besides just reading the books and talking about it. And I figured it might be nice to kind of start out and explain kind of our reading histories and stuff. And I can start us out with that. So I first picked up Malazan in mid 2021, and I read through book 7 before I stopped. And then I picked it up a few months later and read everything set in the Malazan world in 6 months, and I've since read it again for a third time. I grew up loving Harry Potter and the Aragon books and Ranger's Apprentice and things like that. I've since read Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time. And yeah, that's where I stand.
Cool, very cool. Yeah. So I mean, in like my reading history, I've not read all of Malazan yet. I'm the new guy. I'm the newbie. It's my first time, but I mean, I grew up the same thing. Read Harry Potter, read Percy Jackson. I think I read some of Ranger's Apprentice. I totally forgot that was a series. I had a friend that read through all that though. Anyways, I just recently got back in reading about last year, read Lord of the Rings as well. I've read through most of Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere now. So heard a lot about Malazan and from Nate, so I figured why not give it a shot, see what the big deal is.
Yeah, I talked your ear so much about it that you finally decided to just get into it. Um,
Yeah,
and,
had the
and
book on my shelf for about a month.
yeah, I found out that Matt was going to start it soon, and I just said, "Hey, out of the blue, but do you want to do a podcast?" And here we are.
Yeah,
Um,
trying our hand out.
we'll try it. This is my second time ever being on anything podcast related, so maybe no one will ever hear this episode if the audio turns out bad, but we'll see.
A great
Um,
experiment.
yes, exactly. Um, so that's pretty much all that we had for an intro. I don't know if we were thinking of maybe turning this into like a Q&A episode about the series. So if you have any questions that you're just dying to know, you can ask them right now.
Yeah, chat. You hear that? Just kidding. No, I mean, I did have it. I was thinking about this because I was like, you've told me enough that like I just know it's like what's it classified dark fantasy or something?
Yeah,
Is it?
so
It's not grim dark.
there's a
Is it grim
subgenre of
dark?
fantasy called grimdark, and I have read the first Law trilogy, which is definitely grimdark. I wouldn't personally not classify Malazan as grimdark because there is hope in the series, and lots of times in grimdark and in First Law, every character is a piece of crap, and there's
Yeah,
no hope to be found anywhere. So I don't think that Malazan qualifies as that because hope is a huge theme in the series.
it's just more intense from what I've
It is
understood. Then
very intense. Yeah, people that I don't know, maybe starting the series for the first time, if you think things like Stormlight, Archive, and Wheel of Time get violent and intense, they do, but Malazan is on a different level.
well, that's yeah, and so then it's because then you told me, or at least, and I've heard this a few times, but book one and two are different. They're like different plot lines. So like throughout the whole series, it's like different scenes, and then it finally converges near the end or something.
Yeah, so the best way I've ever heard it put, and this is thanks to an awesome Malazan YouTuber. His channel name is a Critical Dragon. His name is AP Canavan, but he describes it that if you were writing an epic series about the events of World War II, you would want a plot line showing what was going on in Europe, and then you'd also want one that was showing what was happening in Asia and one that showed what was happening in Africa. And so books 1, 3, and 8 take place on one continent, and then it's 2, 4, and 6, and 5, 7, and 9 and 10 are on a third continent. But characters do carry over a lot from book to book. It's not like you'll be left abandoned with a whole new set of characters. Other than book 5, you'll get a whole new set of characters with just one that you've met before. But other than that, lots of characters and plot lines do carry through from book to book.
There we go. Yeah, I was wondering because I haven't read anything like that so far. I mean, the most I'd say would be maybe Stormlight. It's gone a little bit like that, but still just all contained, self-contained in the book. Like you keep meeting the characters again. So this will be interesting.
Yeah, and even in Stormlight, you still have a core cast of, I would say, like 5 to 10 characters that
Yeah,
would
about
qualify as main characters. Um, and the 3 characters in Malazan with the highest like word count each take up about 4% of the series, I think.
yeah.
So you'll meet a lot of characters. And I know that you've even like looked at the beginning of the first book, and there's a gigantic list of characters in the front.
I know. Like I read the prologue just to sample it, and then I think maybe a little into chapter one, and I immediately was like, "There's like a lot of different stuff already." Because I mean, yeah, that
Yeah.
first pages in the book is like I don't know how many, like 2 or 3 pages of just characters and who they are, what they're part of. It's kind of wild. Yeah, I'm looking at
Yeah, it's 4 pages
four
of
pages.
characters.
It's a
And
lot.
that's one of the smallest lists in the
And that's just to
series.
get you started.
Yep.
That's the appetizer.
Did you have any other questions that you wanted to
I
ask, or
mean, just
anything you wanted
so
to know?
I guess we're clear on the read through. We're just doing like what 3 chapters a week for book one to start, or because it's the four
Three or
parts, right?
four, 3 or 4 chapters a week. Book 1 is actually going to probably be the easiest. Book 1 and 10 are each divided into like 7
Yeah,
different sub books, so we can just do one of those a week. From then on, I think we'll probably try and do 3 or 4 chapters a week. That may
so we'll
change a
do.
little bit depending on how many chapters are in each sub book, but I think that's probably a good general rule.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. So we'll just start with one book a week from book one, and then
Mm-hmm.
after that, break it down a little more.
Yeah, so the first week we can do the prologue, and then book 1, which is Pale.
Gotcha. So prologue and pale.
Yep, we're planning on this being weekly. It may not always be weekly, but we're going to try to have a
See.
backlog of episodes to start out, maybe like 2 or 3 recorded before we actually release one. But we'll see how it goes.
Yep.
We're both brand new to this, and we don't know what we're doing. So
Listened to too many podcasts, but I've never made one. So this will be interesting to try.
I have like 5 or 6 podcasts that I listen to, many of which are Malazan related.
So I mean, I got the expert here. I'll be brand new, making all the pronunciation mistakes as always.
Oh, I don't think Erickson cares much about pronunciation. Um, I
Oh
just
no,
try to
there's that one.
pronounce it the way he does.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's not too bad then, because I know there's some people out there that get so fired up about how it's pronounced.
Yeah,
So
there's a few egregious sins that I've come across. I won't shout out anyone in particular, but there's only been a couple of people where I'm like, you just switch the letters around in the name. Like, that's not how you pronounce it. Other than that, I don't think anyone really cares. I've heard Malazan.
it's not Tolkien's linguistic ability behind it. What was Erickson, anthropologist or something when he
He
wrote
was
this?
an archaeologist and anthropologist. So he has a really good understanding of ancient cultures and history. Um, and you'll see that's one of the main things in these books is history. And this world has an insanely long history of like 300,000 plus years.
I'm excited. I like history, so this will be fun. I have to see
Yeah,
how this goes.
I'm excited as well. I think we can probably start reading this week. Um,
Finally, I'm waiting.
and then you can send me questions, and I'll probably answer with just Rafa, read and find out a lot. But you might be a little bit lost at first,
Oh,
which
I'm
is
planning
fine.
on it.
Everyone is when they start the series, I think. Um, but you can just read along, trusting that even though Erickson's not going to have a big exposition dump ever, you will be told the information that you need at the point that you need it. So the pacing of this one might also be a little weird and wonky. Some people comment on that. This book was originally written as a screenplay, a
Oh, that's
decade
right.
before the rest of the series. So it was probably my least favorite book my first time reading the series, but I really like it now. And the last time that I read it in 2 days. So
Yeah, it seems like a Mistborn book length. I'm excited.
yes,
I mean,
it crams much more into these pages than a Mistborn book will.
I know. I
But
mean, it's like literally my only comparison right now. I read way too much of Cosmere the past, I don't know, however many months.
which
But
I also infected you with the Cosmere. So
yes, it's fine. I mean, I slipped in some Dune, a few little Star Wars books here and there, but yeah, mostly Cosmere since Lord of the Rings. So this will be interesting, a whole new world.
yep. And then you are the reason, because you've mentioned that you're listening to A Song of Ice and Fire. You're the reason that that's the next series that I'm going to read after I finish the Gentleman Bastard series. So I'll be
Yeah,
reading that concurrently.
yeah. I just finished book one. I'm waiting to get book two on audiobook. And book one, I do not like any of the characters except maybe one or two.
We'll see how you like the Malazan characters then,
You know,
because I've watched the show, for the Game of Thrones show, and there are some characters in Malazan that are more vile than anyone that I've seen in Game of Thrones. So
oh, I imagine.
it's not all
Yeah,
doom and gloom, though. I have cried from laughter and cried from joy and emotion while reading this series many times. So you have that to look forward to as well if you're a crier.
I don't know. I haven't like I read books and I'll like get somewhat emotional about the characters, but it's like sometimes I'm like, did I read it too quick to like get a real build up? Because I'm like looking at my books, I'm like, I think there's maybe two or three of those that I was like, oh wow, that hit me there. I think it was like the ends of Words of Radiance. Like there's a couple parts I was like, wow, that was a little sad. Or a lot sad. I mean, just depends on who you are. But I mean, yeah,
I'm just a huge softy. I get
yeah.
emotional in a lot that I probably don't need to, but I like it, so I do.
Yeah, it's fine. Adds to the enjoyment. Makes it more special, I'd say.
Yeah.
So
Did you have anything else that you wanted to
no, let's just
ask?
get reading.
Okay, sounds good. I'm not sure when the rest of the world will hear this. Um, but hopefully by the time that you hear this, we will be back in a few days or next week with book one of Gardens of the Moon.
Heck yeah. Let's get reading.
Until then, we will see you all later.
I'll see you.